everyone. Welcome to Mosaic with TJ Randolph. I want to talk to you about a couple of things. Before I get into that, I'm going to ask that you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and also hit the notification button. I might be digging a hole for myself, but I think it's worth digging. And I think it's worth digging because I asked a friend of mine, shout out to Courtney Michelle, with everything that's going on, that's going viral with what Cam Newton said and what Tashina Arnold has written, even going back to the video or the documentary that Tina Knowles did. I asked the question, can we as women, specifically Black women, be critiqued at all? If we can't, can we not receive any constructive redirection at all? We don't want to receive it from Black men, and we can't receive it from each other without being attacked. So how do we get what we say we want? And it really kind of bothered me. So no one can critique us at all? It's understandable if you don't agree, because everybody has an opinion, understandably. But no one? I think that's very sad. And the reason why I say that, I'm older than most. And there was a time that we were able to take constructive redirection. Some we could use, some we couldn't. We were able to take it from our girlfriends. Some we used, some we didn't. We were able to take it from our parents. Some we used, some we didn't. But we listened and we took it. And even if we couldn't apply it then, we were able to apply it. We did not immediately shut down and shut out and cast out and act out because we didn't agree. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to offer some commentary based on the person I was and the person I am now. I'm going to talk about the Cam Newton interview. I'm going to play some of it. I'm going to talk a little bit about it at different points, at different segments. So let's get into this. And I am playing this from NBC News, and they took this from the interview that he did with $1 Million Podcast, I believe, but they're going to mention, they're going to reference it. So they're referencing the podcast and I'm referencing NBC Sports. So let's do this.
Newton, from the $1 Million Worth of Game podcast, a Barstool Sports production, with his views on gender. Here's Cam.
I had a perfect example of what a man was in my life by my father. Mm-hmm. My parents has been together for 36, 37 years now, and it's a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. I grew up in a 3-parent household, my mom, my father, and my grandmother. And I knew what a woman was, not a bad bitch.
Okay, what's the difference?
A woman.
Okay.
A bad bitch is a person who's just, girl, I'm a bad bitch. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I look the part, but I don't act the part.
Okay.
And it's a lot of women who...
Okay, I'm going to stop right there. Let's dissect the part when he says he grew up seeing what a man was, and talking about his father, talking about the what he saw him do far as leading his household, and I'm just surmising this. He said he know what a woman was, not a bad bitch. Again, going with my age, I grew up in a time where bitch was not a compliment. It's still not for me and for people that I surround myself with. Now, here's the thing. I'm not saying that I never referred myself as a bad bitch. But usually when I did, I was about to act like one. Okay? But on the regular, bitch was never a compliment. In my era, my mother's era, because that means female dog. Okay? Keep that in mind. That means aggressive because female dogs are vicious. They can be vicious. Let's continue.
Are bad bitches, and I say is in a way not to degrade a woman, but just to go off the aesthetic of what they deem is a boss chick. Now, a woman for me is handling your own, but knowing how to cater to a man's needs.
Okay, let's stop right there. And this reminds me also of the boycott that people, that specifically women, wanted to do of the Cater to You song that Destiny's Child did. Are we really that sensitive? Are we really that sensitive? During the time that this song came out, you see my military pictures behind you. You see my military awards. I was an officer in not one, but two branches of the military. I did very well in the military. So I guess if you want to look at that, I would be considered a boss because I was large and in charge. I was in charge of men and women. During that time, that song came out, Cater to You came out. I liked it. I liked it. I may have had a boyfriend or two, but I knew what it meant because I understood somewhat, not completely, understood what a woman was supposed to be to a man and a man was supposed to be to a woman. Again, notice I said somewhat. Because if I would have got it locked in, I probably would have been married then because I always knew I wanted to be married, but I didn't understand completely what it meant to be a wife. I grew up as a latchkey kid, meaning my mom had worked several jobs, 2, sometimes 3, and me and my sister were at home by ourselves. So we cooked. Now, we didn't cook like our grandmother cooked, but we cooked, beans, hamburgers, stuff like that kids could cook. But I knew how to cook. I knew how to make, eggs and, pancakes and stuff like that. I knew how to cook some stuff. My grandmother made things from scratch. So one of the things growing up, particularly when I got to be in college, because I had to cook a lot of times when I was being raised by my mom and when I went to go live with my dad for a spell. So because I had to do that, I said, I'm not cooking for nobody. When I got to college and out on my own, sure didn't. And I didn't. And was offended if a man asked me to. Let's continue.
Like I'm a this, I'm a that. No, baby. Like, but you can't cook.
Okay.
You don't know when to be quiet. You don't know how to allow a man to lead.
Stop right there. Interestingly enough, even though I know how to cook some things, when I was dating, I rarely cooked, if at all. You heard me just say I would be offended if a man wanted me to cook. I'm like, I don't do that. Okay? I didn't know how to be quiet. I did not know how to listen. And particularly, I didn't have to really be quiet because they had to listen to me. Why? I was an officer. I was a leader. Who else had to listen to me? My daughter. So I didn't have to listen to anyone. I didn't know how to. And because I was climbing the ladder, whether it was the military or civil service, I was competing with men. So I acted like some. But what I did not realize that at the time. I realize it now. I did not realize I was showing my daughter how to dominate in relationships a lot of times because she saw me in my work posture, regulating, handling business, addressing issues fervently, directly, assertively. But what I was teaching her was to do the same thing. I did not realize I was showing her how I dominated in relationships because I didn't think that's what I was doing. But it is what I was doing. Let's continue.
You know, when I saw the tweet with some of the quotes and I started listening to it, I was expecting something that went completely off the rails and stayed off the rails. So initially I was like, well, I mean, this isn't great, but Cam. And then it builds, and then the last 15 seconds, it's like Archie Bunker's sitting in his favorite chair telling Edith to go get him a beer. I just, and look, let me just say this right out of the gates. We're not trying to cancel Cam Newton. This isn't cancel culture. This is somebody saying something that causes others to say, what the hell is he saying? Why is he saying it?
Okay, so what? So what? So what? Why is he saying it? Because he saw the example of the type of man that we say we want. Now, I didn't hear him say, talking about Cam, to be a slave to a man. I didn't hear him say that. I heard him say, cater to a man. Let's talk about it for a moment, shall we? During the time, I was talking to, again, Courtney Michelle, shout out to Courtney Michelle, because I was looking at a video on from We Need to Talk. Shout out to that young man as well. And the woman that was being interviewed at the time was talking about how she would submit to a man or a 1% or a 10%er. That he had to have the six figures and all that stuff. And I was telling her, I grew up in a time that men had jobs that they provided for their family, many of which were blue collar jobs, working for the post office, working for GM, working for the telephone company, working for the city, whatever. These were jobs that they had for years that enabled them to take care of their families. So when I went to school, I wasn't looking for a six-figure guy. I was looking for a guy who had a work ethic that should have got to a point that I was able to get married, that he would work to provide for his family. No matter how much money he made. So let's consider that for a moment. He saw his mother cater to his father. Saw his grandmother, maybe cater to her grandpa. I'm just guessing because he didn't mention that. But I'm guessing that the father, I'll just use the example of when I grew up. These men were working in factories. So not to say that the wives didn't have jobs either, because they did. They did. They had jobs. They came home and dealt with the kids, and they made dinner. My husband, he's 57, grew up with his parents. His mother worked for the telephone company. His father was in some type of construction or contract work, but provided for his family. But his mother made dinner. He said his mother cooked every day. Why? Because when that man goes out, yes, I'm in the workforce and he was in the workforce, or what am I trying to say? The mother was in the workforce and the father was in the workforce. But chances are that black father had to deal with things that black mother didn't. Let's continue.
Why does he think this way? These are views that were outdated in the early 70s, for crying out loud. And it conjures memories of his press conference during the 2017 season when Jordan Rodriguez, then of the Charlotte Observer, asked him about Devin Funchess's physicality in running routes. And he was very dismissive and said,
kind of giggled like it's funny.
Funny to hear. To hear a female talking about routes. And it was so bad, the NFL issued a statement condemning.
Again, he did not say, bow down and serve me. Cater to your men. Let's look up what cater means, shall we? Let's go ahead and do that. Let's look up the word cater. Let's look up the word cater. One definition is to provide someone with what is needed or required. Whether it be food, drink, attention, conversation. Also, let's talk about cater, because when we have a party, we have it what? Catered. They're serving us. They're providing food, drink. They're supplying something, a need, a want. I don't see anything about indentured servitude in here. I don't. So what frustrates me, one of the things that frustrates me, these men didn't sift through to understand what the young man was trying to say. The reason, and here's another thing, I would have been just as offended, let's say 8 years ago and prior. I would have been just as offended. And it was that way of thinking that probably prevented me from being a good wife to my daughter's father, because I was working. Again, at the time I was in the military, he was working. When he would come home, he would want a home cooked meal a couple of times a week. And I'm like, I'm tired just like you are. And I was. But I did not have nearly the difficulties of managing a household that our predecessors did, to even cook a couple of times a week. I was offended. Like, how dare you? I went to school. I didn't go to school to sit up here and just serve you. But yet, couldn't understand why I could find a man, but I couldn't keep one. I couldn't keep one. Another thing, not apart from, not only did I not serve him or cater to him or be attentive. Let's change the word cater to attentive instead of cater. Not only was I not doing that, I was talking too much also. What do you mean by that, TJ? Well, I'm going to tell you. We as women, generally speaking, again, if it don't apply, let it fly. Generally speaking, girls talk more than boys. Generally speaking. Do I have scientific evidence? No, but I'm sure you can probably Google it. But I want you to think back to your primary school years. I can use my own example and I can use my daughter's example. When I was in school, one of the major things that I used to get in trouble for was talking in class when I was supposed to be paying attention to the teacher. I'm going to let that sit for a minute. Yeah. Talking when I'm supposed to be paying attention to the teacher. I remember my mom telling me, even in elementary school, let's not even talk about high school, because, when you're in high school, you'd have kind of lost your mind anyway. Let's go to elementary school. My mom told me countless times that the teachers, when we had report cards, I don't know what y'all do now, they say, TJ is a good student, but she talks too much in class. Girls were always talking. Okay? Let's talk about my daughter, who will be 28 this year. Always been an excellent student. When she was excellent, same thing. Danielle is so smart, but she just talks too much in class. Talks too much. From the time she learned how to talk, she never stopped. Sometimes I used to tease her. I said, take a breath. Take a breath. Same thing when I was raising her through teenage years, and even as a young adult when she was out on her own. We would have these conversations. I'm talking to her. But instead of her stopping to listen, to digest, it was as if she was formulating her rebuttal in her mind. So as soon as I stopped talking, she said something. That's not listening. Let's talk about that. Hearing is a physical or a biological function. Either you hear a sound or you don't. Either you hear sound or you don't. But listening is more than that. Listening is taking what you have heard, processing it, sitting on it, and interpreting it. Many times, we women don't do that. I didn't. A lot of times, now listen, I'm talking about my story. If some of it applies to you, you need to go ahead and step off in it. If it don't, let it go. But these are things I had to learn. In my relationships, I would talk about, a man will talk, and most men use very few words. Most men use very few words. And most men think about what they're saying. So a lot of times there'll be these pauses, but because our minds are processing information so much faster and we're more communicative, we're speaking over them. We are. And then that's on a regular conversation. But if it is a discord, we really gonna let you know what we think. If it's coming up, it's coming out. That's what he meant. I remember saying many times, maybe roughly 10 years ago, and then, maybe I said, you don't have to worry about what I'm thinking because I'm going to tell you. And I used to say, don't ask me what I'm thinking because I'm going to tell you. I said, even if you don't ask me sometime, I'm going to tell you. Yeah. Yeah. That's what he's talking about. Let the man lead. Let's talk about that one for a moment, shall we? I remember I've always been independent, largely because of the way I grew up being raised by a single mother, being the oldest. I worked a part-time job, at the age of 14, then going into the military, and then, but before going into the military, again, being a student leader on campus and a sorority, leader in my sorority at the time, then being a single mom. I've always been independent. So what I would do because of this independence, I would use that to I thought it was inspiring my man at the time, but it was actually leading him, trying to lead him. And that was not my role to do. It was my role to inspire him, but it was not my role to direct him. And sometimes I try to do that under the guise of believing that I'm helping. So when he said a man to lead, sometimes it means even though you can do something, maybe you shouldn't. So as I said, I've always been independent, but there came a time in my life, particularly after, when my daughter was getting older, I remember saying, she had to be in middle school. I said, just because I can do everything doesn't mean I want to. And I said, being independent is overrated. But you couldn't tell me that years prior. Couldn't tell me that. Feeling like I had to do it all. So because I felt like I had to do it all, I wouldn't allow a man to lead because, again, if it wasn't done the way that I wanted it to be done, I would take it over. That's what he's talking about. That's what Cam Newton was talking about. What he was talking about, and see if this applies to you. A man wanting to take me out, wanting to cater to me and treat me like a lady, wanting to open my door, wanting to carry my groceries, wanting to, and I said, no, I got it. What I didn't realize I was doing was saying, I don't need you. So after a while, they let me have it. And then I got sad and wondered, how come I can't find a man to help me or to support me or be there for me? I had some. Not all of them were good, but surely all of them weren't bad. But I was being independent. I don't need you. Even though I never said I don't need you. But that's the message I was giving. I didn't know it. Does that mean that they wanted me to be a slave to them? No. I had to learn, and it's so funny. Many women, older women that I met coming up, most of whom had been married, would say to me as a young lady, a man needs to be a man and you have to let a man be a man. I didn't understand that. I didn't understand. And you know, some women say, well, they cheat. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, even though you can make certain decisions, you defer to him to make them. Even though you have been in a position where you've had to make all the decisions, now you have a man, you confer with him. That's what Cam Newton is talking about. But women done got so damn sensitive, they can't even get the message. They're not even listening. They're hearing, but they're not listening. That's why they're so damn offended. How can I judge that? Like I said, I was one of them. Miserable and by myself as fuck. Excuse me, y'all. And couldn't figure out why. Let's continue.
What he had said. The NFL came out and said the comments were unacceptable in 2017. And that was when he had a job. That was when he was the starting quarterback at the Carolina Panthers. You know, Chris, setting aside how wrong-headed the comments were, how outdated they were, how cartoonishly laughable they were, he ain't going to get a job.
Okay, look. Why was it cartoonishly laughable? To say that the woman for him should be able to take care of her business, basically be self-sufficient. Because by the way, fathers were teaching their daughters to be self-sufficient too, but also wanting them to be self-sufficient, but not independent of wanting a husband if that's what you wanted. Why is it cartoonishly laughable? Why? Or do we to assume because he wants the woman for him would be able to be self-sufficient, but also cater to him? Are we to assume that he wouldn't be catering to her as well? Are we to assume that just because he said that he does not want a woman who can think? Is that what we are to assume? So I don't know if these two gentlemen really believe what they're saying, or if they want to ensure that they yield so as not to be a target of the cancel culture. So now I'm going to switch it to Tashina Arnold. I'm going to switch it to Tashina Arnold. So you see here, I guess this was yesterday on the 13th, she asked honest question, what can we as Black women in America do to stop aiding in the emasculation of Black men in America? It is my understanding that has set a firestorm. Again, no one can correct us at all. No one can advise us. No one can critique us at all. Nobody. The women that are our age, our elders, nobody. There was a time, and you know, I don't give a damn what to say. There was a time that an older woman would see a young lady, a young woman, walking down the street acting unladylike. And would say something like this, you know, sweetheart, you're a beautiful young lady. Please, you shouldn't be talking like that. And the girl would say, even if she looked at the old woman even if she thought the old woman was out of her mind, she'd say, she's okay. Juxtapose that to 3 years ago. I'm in North Carolina with my mom, my sister. We're in the beauty supply. But when I get out of the car, my mom and my sister are already in the car. Already inside the store. I'm parking and I look to my left and I see a minivan that has 2 babies in it. And I say babies because one was actually in a car seat and one looked like maybe a toddler. Had the motor running with the air conditioning on, but be mindful, it was 90 plus degrees. So I stay outside a little bit longer just to see if someone was going to come see about these children. Because yeah, the air conditioner was on, but we've heard many stories how that can go off and how babies have ended up and children have ended up dying in cars. So I'm waiting. So finally I go into the store. I say, Mommy, there's a van out there that has these 2 babies in it. And you know, they're by themselves, and my mom said, call the police. So I guess the young lady must have heard us talking about it and said something to the effect, asked what we were talking about. And I asked her, I said, is that your van? She said, yes. She said, yes. And my mom said, go get those babies out of that car. It's 90 degrees or something like that. And instead of this woman who was in there buying hair, instead of this woman being appreciative that someone even cared about her children, this woman is going out the store cussing this old bitch. I'm going to leave her have to cuss a bitch out. Can't nobody tell us nothing? Nobody? Nobody can't ask us nothing? Really? Unless you say that you agree with everything, that's the only thing that you will receive. So I'm reading the comments. I'm going to read one of them. I'm going to pull it up here. Says, we as Black women are not responsible for the image that Black men have created for themselves. I wish people would stop placing this responsibility on us. Let me tell you something. She asked, what can we do to help or to stop aiding? Let me tell you how we sometimes don't even know that we're aiding in the emasculation. Instead of being offended, dissect what the question was. Let's talk about it. I told you I was in the military, in leadership. I already told you that, well, I told you part of it. I do a show with my daughter every now and again. And a few months back, I asked my daughter during the live, we were talking about dating, and I asked her, growing up, what did you see from me when I was dating men? What did you see? She said in front of my audience, well, I just saw how you dominated in relationships. I was floored. I was floored. I didn't know how to fall back. I didn't know how to be soft. I didn't know how to be demure because my life and my job, my work required that I had an exterior. But I didn't know that I was sending a message to be dominant. And things I thought were encouraging my man, I was directing him. I was nagging him. I was teaching my daughter to dominate. Ergo, aiding in the emasculation. She did not say intentionally. I wasn't doing it intentionally. Don't mean I wasn't doing it. Yeah, we can talk all day long about the fact that men do this, men do that. I'm not talking about men. I'm talking about us. There's enough going on to talk about them. Let's talk about us right now. Let's talk about us right now. I didn't know that's what I was doing. And nobody told me that's what I was doing. Nobody told me that's what I was doing. And you have a situation where women, we talk a lot. Men will just shut down. So I can think back to times that I was in a relationship that my man would just shut down and wouldn't talk to me, and not necessarily in the sense of, not talk to me at all, but just tune me out. Because a man does not want to be mothered. And that can be part of the emasculation also. A woman should not, listen, I had to lead men in the military. A man generally doesn't need you to lead him. He shouldn't. So I think that's what Cam Newton was talking about. And instead of being offended by it, why don't you do a self-evaluation? I definitely had to. And no one is saying to be a mute. No one is saying that. I didn't know how to be coy. I didn't know how to be demure. But yet, I said I wanted a man to open doors for me or to treat me this way. But a lot of times I didn't allow it. So what does a man do if he can't be a man? He goes to someone else where he can be. Let me tell you what I've learned. I'm married now. You know, I've shared this story before. Before I met my husband, I was in a relationship that was not a healthy one. And in as much as it ended in physical scars from how it ended and emotional scars, there were some things that I did that probably aided in the emasculation of this individual. And instead of him walking away from me, which he probably should have, he ultimately abused me. Now, again, keep in mind, I thought I was being encouraging. I thought I was being inspiring. I thought I was being motivating. And maybe under the right circumstances, it may have been seen that way, but that's not how he took it. Now, he had some other issues that I later found out as to why he didn't take it that way. But I'm looking at what I did. So, and again, talking a lot, talking over him, also correcting him. How many of us have done that? A man will say a word that, is not the correct word, and instead of just letting it ride, we feel the need to correct them. I used to do that a lot. I'm sorry, ladies, that aids in the emasculation. Because in as much as the word may be wrong, a lot of times we know what they meant. But we got to prove that we know something that they don't. Examine yourself. I did it many a times. Many a times. And not only did I do it, I would do it in front of other people. Because I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. I thought I was helping. So again, I asked the question, nobody can say anything to us? No one can give us any counsel? No one can give us constructive redirection at all? Because to do so, we a mammy, which is insulting in and of itself. Look up what a mammy is or was. You should be ashamed of yourself. Or a pick-me. And here's the thing, that's intended to be an insult. It ain't. I'm picked. I got chose. Check it out. How did I get chose? Like I said, I was in that, before I met my husband, I was in that relationship that was not healthy for me. And it ended violently. That forced me to do some examination, some therapy as to why I was making the choices and why I kept having these poor relationships. So in as much as I can blame them for some stuff, I absolutely can. But I was picking them and allowing them to pick me. And then I was not soft. The way I was at work was the way I was with them. And a man doesn't need that. The way I was at work, and sometimes the way I was with my child, is the way I was with them. Because even to going back to that as it relates to my child, being in character, being in uniform, my mother even had to say to me one time, TJ, Danny is your child. She's not your soldier. So while I was being in that boss mindset, I didn't know how to shut it off. I didn't know how to not direct, orchestrate, plan. Didn't know how to do it. And because I didn't know how to do it, it interfered with a man leading me. And leading me is not leading by the nose. No. It is a covering. Many of us say we want it. But the problem is we say we want it, but then we want to tell you how to give it to us. It don't work like that. I had to learn. And if I hadn't almost lost my life or been in a position where I could have, I still might be trying to learn it, because I still would have been making the same type of mistakes over and over again. But the difference is I later understood by doing the work on myself, asking questions, listening more, not talking about my accomplishments or what I could do or what I had done, but listening more and asking about them. And waiting for them to answer the freaking question before I answer it for them. So let's talk about now. I met my husband at 51. I'm 54. My husband is a hardworking truck driver. Hardworking. And it's funny because part of me still had that same mindset, because when I met him, started dating him, I said, listen, I don't do a lot of cooking. If that's what you're looking for, I'm not your girl. I said that when we first started dating. And he said to me, I don't expect you to cook every day. He said, but I would like to have, I would like my wife to cook, at least a couple of times a week. And I said, well, I can do that. I could do that. So as we got closer and closer and got engaged, and got married, I started to make a priority to make sure that when he came off the road, whenever it was, that he had a home cooked meal waiting for him. Why? He's out on that road, eating whatever's available, working hard to take care of me, even when I was working, because I'm retired now. But when we got together, I was still gainfully employed in the federal service, working 8, sometimes 9 hours a day, sometimes traveling around the country giving classes. But when I was home and before my husband got home, I was attentive to his needs. I was anticipating his needs. I was catering to him. What's wrong with that? And the funny thing about it is, the more I catered to him, the more he catered to me. The more I was in tune and anticipated his needs and desires, the reaping I got and am getting. So instead of y'all being so damn pissed off, maybe you should think about what she was asking. The question, maybe you should think about what Cam Newton was talking about, instead of bitching and complaining. Because a lot of times we say we want it, but we don't know what it takes to get it. And then when somebody tries to tell us what it takes to get it, because we don't like it that way, we want to lambaste them. And I can speak with full authority because I was one of them. And peep game on this. People who've known me since going back to college, 30 plus years, who've seen me in the various relationships through the course of my life, my parents, my daughters, my siblings, all of them have said they've never seen me happier. Never seen me happier. I fix his plate. But peep game, he does it for me too. He does it for me too. I take care of the house. I'm the house manager. But guess what? When he's home, he gets up before me. He makes breakfast. Guess what? He washes dishes too. Here's another thing how we help to emasculate. Going back to that previous relationship that I told you that I was aiding in emasculation. And even though I didn't know it was that, I remember the guy, even though he had his issues, no doubt. But one thing I learned, there are several things I learned from that situation. But this man, a couple of times he would wash the dishes for me or unload the dishwasher. And he put the dishes in the wrong place. So because I felt it had to be my way, I would correct him. Well, they actually go over here. As opposed to being thankful for the gesture. So what did I learn from that? I learned when my husband does stuff, sometimes he puts them in the wrong place, but guess what I do? Thank you, baby, for washing the dishes. Thank you for putting the dishes up, and then I'll go back and put them where they're supposed to go, if it's that important. And the funny thing about it, like I said, the more I cater to him, the more he caters to me. And then my daughter started to notice, she said, Mom, you didn't cook this much for me. And it's true. So again, we do aid in the emasculation. And whether we're responsible for their image or not, we do aid in the emasculation. Just like our image as women right now, we created that. I'm not saying that we didn't have some help in some instances, but we created that. Whatever the motivations, we created that. So they're not responsible for that either. But again, we want them to treat us like ladies, but we act like bitches. I'm just saying. So no, they're not responsible. We're not responsible for their image, but are we aiding in? Yeah, in some instances we were. And no one's to say it's intentional. You heard me say it wasn't intentional. I was unwittingly doing it, believing I was helping. But I wasn't. There was a time that I was with a man. He was a hardworking, construction guy. And we were in our 40s at the time. And I said, it was very talented, very experienced. And I said, honey, have you considered, you might want to get your general contractor's license because, we're getting older. You're not going to be able to do this type of work, forever. But if you get your general contractor's license, you can have people work for you. I offered the idea. He took it under advisement, but when he didn't do anything like I thought he should, guess what I did? I kept hounding the idea. I kept hounding the idea, trying to force the issue. It should have been apparent to me that's not what he wanted to do. As long as he was able to provide with the work he was doing, that I should have left it right there. But I didn't. Or if I thought something that was not something I wanted to rock with, I should have made different decisions, but I didn't. Juxtapose that to now. My husband's been a truck driver for over 30 years. I asked him, I think when we were dating, I said, have you ever thought about even, being a supervisor or, maybe being an instructor? He said, yeah, I thought about it, but I don't want to do it. Okay. Ain't never talked about it again. Because just because I have aspirations or to do certain things, it's not my responsibility to put that on him. As long as he's doing what he needs to do to provide and protect and lead the family. But we want to make our ambition and our drive theirs. But again, going back to the days of old, it was about providing for your family legally. You know, police officers, firemen, postal work, all these different things. So why can't it was about the stability and provision for the family and the stability for the family. Why is it not that anymore? That's what we should be looking for, ladies. And I'm trying to help you. So you don't have to wait until you're 51 and may not be as fortunate as I was to get it right to enable me to see that I had the 1%. Meaning good man who cherishes me, honors me, respects me, loves me, provides for me. And I cater to him. I cater to his needs. I'm attentive to his needs. I anticipate his needs. And guess what? He anticipates mine. So instead of being angry and offended, think about it. Now, if I get drugged, so be it. But guess what? I'm happy like a mug. I'm just saying. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to grow you. So if you don't want it, whatever. But I'm just telling you. Until next time.